Okay, welcome to the Crow Discovery Project. I have an interview that I did with Randy in Houston, who has caught the lunar wave twice. I didn't have time to see him when I was in Houston, so I wanted to do this interview to talk with him about his experience in capturing the lunar wave, and also about the coming prediction that our best chance will be between the 20th and the 30th of this month, with the fall, the fall equinox falling on the 23rd. I will put a calendar up during the part of the interview, and at the very end of this I will put up a calendar. As a matter of fact, I'll run the calendar behind my voice as I do this intro. But anyhow, here's the interview. Cheers. All right, this is Crrow777 speaking with Randy in Houston, who has filmed the lunar wave twice now. How you doing, Randy?
I am doing great, Crow, man. How you doing today?
Oh, pretty good. The weather's good. The chemtrailing let up. We had about 2-3 days of very heavy chemtrailing.
Yeah.
You guys clear out there?
Well, for the last month and a half, we actually been really clear on the chemtrail stuff, but we've been getting some good rain and some good cloudy and rainy weather, some good stuff. You know, not the nasty junk, just some good old rain. The grass is starting to turn green again and everything. So yeah, that's been good. Kind of killing the heat a little bit too, you know?
Yeah, the sun feels so direct when the sky is clear now. I noticed a lot of people on the channel commenting about how direct the sun feels. But
Yeah.
When I was in Virginia, my jaw dropped. I couldn't believe what they put up with on a daily basis. But anyhow, you know, we're kind of doing this to talk about the lunar wave. When I came through Houston, I met with Houston Skywatch, but I just didn't have time to do any more because I had like 700 miles of Texas to get through. So I want to talk to you a little bit about that. So you've had 2 captures of the lunar wave so far, correct?
Yes, I had 2 ways. Actually, the first one is when I first really started, just kind of started filming the moon, and of course, being all curious of what the moon looks like. I was zooming right in on top of it, getting down into the dirt of the moon, and well, if it's dirt, who knows what it is, but I was getting up close to the picture, you know, and really seeing what things look like, and was just so intriguing. And when I actually seen your first, or your, I think it's a 2012 video that you had, when I saw that, I was like, wow, I think I've got that. You know, I went back through all my videos. Of course, I found it. And it was a real close up, and it passed by just real fast. And of course, I sent that one to you and let you analyze it. And you did say, yes, you caught it, but it came by at 17 seconds later, and it was so fast just as you was moving the camera or the telescope around. So, and that's when you instructed, like, back off a little bit so you get a bigger perspective. And actually, that's made it a lot more fun, too, because now I get a bigger perspective. And, of course, some of the weird things that flies by at night, not only birds, but you catch some pretty unique space junk and stuff flying around up there, you know?
Yeah, there's no doubt. When you kind of get used to doing a full frame shot of the moon, which isn't really kind of intuitive thing to do, you do catch a lot of interesting things. But I was not aware of what you just told me. So you already had that clip in the bag when you became aware of what I had filmed. So do you remember the date of that capture?
I think it was in, it had to be the first part of the year because I had gotten my camera in for Christmas. It was one of my little Christmas presents. And so it had to be right after Christmas, somewhere thereabouts, first part of the year. I think it was around January, give or take, somewhere thereabouts is when I actually caught it, you know.
Wow, so that makes me wonder. I mean, I must have did I put the wrong date when I presented the clip? Did I put the wrong date and time? Or I don't remember. Did we pull a date off the clip?
Oh, I think we did, but I tell you what, as you might, try to add some, text into this, this Skype message as you go to do a video or whatever there. I'll get you the correct timestamp on that, and it'll tell us exactly when, because that's a very crucial thing to know if it was in January, February, or March, one of those months there, that, not necessarily on a particular lunar cycle or, phase or whatever. It might be something unique. So,
right, and it makes me wonder because I almost certainly went to the clip and just pulled the date, but the problem with that is under certain conditions, if you copy a video clip, you can get a new timestamp unless you look at the metadata it's not always self-evident what the original capture time is. So yeah, that's critical that we kind of discovered that. So, but then later when you had pulled back and you were filming the moon in full frame, you caught it again. Do you remember when that was?
Yeah, I think that was in March the 20 something there. Actually, you were saying it was going to be coming up. It was a possible, very good chance that we'd catch it. And it was one of those days when I was pretty much very exhausted from working all day and everything. And I was out there, and it was about only 9:15 or 9:20 at our time here in Houston. And I had it set up and I was watching it, and I was just fixing to turn the whole telescope off and everything, just put it all back in the shop. And I actually turned around, and when I looked at my monitor, there was the wave going across. My heart just sank. I'm like, this is what Crrow's been talking about, the whole time, So I was just like, okay. He said it comes in twos. I waited. Well, I waited my 17 to 20 seconds. Nothing happened. And actually, I think it was 40 seconds later, it came right behind it again, just as beautiful as you could possibly want to see it. And it was a clear, clean shot, too.
So, that was kind of really a godsend, that capture that you made, because I had made the prediction that at the spring or vernal equinox in March was our best chance, and you pulled through, although it was tragic because I was shooting the same night and I missed it by minutes.
Right.
Houston Skywatch missed it by a couple hours. But I mean, we're kind of at a point now where I've made again another prediction for this month in September.
Yeah. I'm
telling everyone to film from the 20th to the 30th, with the equinox falling on the 23rd. And I'm really kind of hoping that we can get a simultaneous catch, because there's a crazy thing. Someone had asked me the other night, what's the best time to film? And as I begin to go through all the dates and times of things, I actually did come up with from 7:30 in the evening till about 10:30 at 11 is when almost everything has been caught. The problem with that, I almost posted that, but the problem with that is as I was sitting there, it dawned on me all at once. 7:30 for me is 10:30 on the East Coast. So if it is a possible time when we have a simultaneous view, it's just a very confusing thing. I mean, are we going to be able to do a simultaneous filming, or is there something else going on here? And we're not going to know until we've had two good scopes, two good HD scopes pointed at the moon. So, I mean, are you going to be able to film in the predicted kind of 20th through the 30th of this month?
I've already put it on my calendar, and I've got the time blocked out. I'm kind of clearing things out, watching what football games the kids have and this and that, so I can get out here and get on that, get the camera all set up, and do some good shooting that night. So I think it's almost like a week time we got there.
Right, it actually a little bit more. Is that your system that we see behind you?
Oh yeah. That's a Celestron 6 SE. It's not the most expensive one, but it's not the cheapest either, and it works really, really good. And what I have here, just a simple adapter. I'm going to hold that up so everyone can see that. It's just a simple adapter. I actually picked this up at Fry's Electronics in their telescope area, which their telescopes are not very impressive over there, but I found this. I actually bought this before I even got my telescope. Sort of like getting your anchor before your boat, but I got this, and it works really good. And I've got a simple Sony Handycam. It's a little simple thing. And I'm just doing this so the viewers can actually see this. Let me hold this up. It just sits right on top, just like this. And of course, this screw right here just goes in the bottom, just like you'd attach it to a tripod. It just sits right in there. And of course, the lens of the telescope goes right in here, and you just kind of, you kind of screw this down onto the lens, and it just holds everything right on the lens of the telescope, just like that. Wow! And of course, you got to do a little bit of adjustment to get it to where you can really see well,
I had no idea. So you're doing eyepiece projection. You've got a diagonal and an eyepiece in when you're doing this. I didn't realize. Right. So it's a cool thing to show that, and also it's cool that you've shown what beautiful footage you can get of the moon. I mean, the untrained eye probably wouldn't see much difference between what you're shooting and what I'm shooting.
Yeah.
So even these kind of mid to lower grade, in terms of price, telescopes can produce just beautiful HD footage. But that's very interesting to me because I had not really considered that you were doing eyepiece projection, because what that means is you have a diagonal, which is a prism, which means the image is being flipped,
Flipped over. Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
important to know because so many times I've put footage up on my channel and people have come back saying, "Oh, you lied. This isn't true," because they didn't
Right.
understand that the image was being
Yeah.
flipped because of the prism.
Mm.
So that's funny because I've looked at all the footage you've given me and I never dawned on me that I was looking at something that was flipped 180. Maybe I wasn't comparing it to what I shot. But
Yeah.
anyhow, what's kind of your impression? I mean, you've done this twice now, and I just got to ask, what do you think is going on with the lunar wave?
Oh
What
man.
does it mean? I mean, let me rephrase that. What does it mean to you, and does it have any bearing on how you view the moon?
Wow. That's a loaded question,
It
man.
is
It's big.
it is a
Well,
loaded
put it
question.
to you this way. Let me just tell you my observations. First off, when you're looking at the moon, and yeah, you can look at it and you can see the normal heat wave that you have in the atmosphere.
Right.
Okay, or like just like looking down the road and you see the heat waves and stuff. You have that. But when the moon is actually very active, and and I've watched my video hundreds of times, and the moon has this pulsating look.
All right, here's the general information. This was shot on March 27 at 9:20 Houston time. The unusual thing is roughly 40 seconds lapse between the waves. The big deal is Randy followed the research and knew there was a prediction for waves between the equinox and Easter. Here comes the footage. I will cue you. It's coming from the bottom right now. And there it goes. All right, there is the first wave by. What makes this footage very unusual, and you can see, Hattie Bow said, always in the third phase up till 2012 and associated events happening with the wave that I filmed in 2012. What's crazy about it is these things keep getting harder to see, and look at the spacing. If you saw the first one, would you sit there and stare for 40 seconds trying to determine what you just saw? I mean, what's going on here? Anyhow, in about 10 seconds, we're going to see the second one. I'll cue you as it comes in from the bottom. And there it is. So I'm going to load filters. And by the way, he used a diagonal with a prism, which is why the image is flipped. Okay, the first view we're going to take here is with only contrast and brightness. I'll cue you when the wave is coming in from the bottom. And here it comes now. There it is. And I have cut the 40-second interval down so we don't have to wait as long to see the second wave. Here is the cut mark, and right here is the second wave, and there it goes. And to be clear, this gentleman is using what's called a diagonal. It holds an eyepiece. There is a prism in there. That is the only reason why the image is flipped, and I have not unflipped it to present it as it was shown. Here's color, contrast, brightness with channel inversion, and here it comes. That's a pretty good view, and I'm going to run some other filters to see how much better I can get the view for us. And these are all in real time. There's no time manipulation. There was the cut, and here it comes from the bottom. All right. So there it is, and let's load up a couple more filters and see what we can do. Okay, so this is a find edges filter, and in the filter it's not inverted. Here comes the wave from the bottom now. And there it is. And look at that pulsating. This find edge filter is such a handy thing, and it's reminiscent of the energy pulse in the 2012. And here it comes from the bottom. But as I ran the filters, that's what struck me, was just the pulsating look that the entire moon has. And I ran this on just some footage I shot last night, and I do not get the same effect, though I don't have footage from this time, unfortunately. And here it comes from the bottom. Here is an inversion of the find edge filter and blended through to the original file. Here comes the cut. There's the cut. And here comes the next wave right now. All right, and we'll load up one more view with filters and then look at the thing in its entirety. So right here is an inverted find edge that's partially blended through with contrast and brightness. And here comes the filter now, the wave right now. And right here is the cut in the file to shorten the interval. Here comes the second wave right now. Let's look at that pulsating moon up there. It's crazy. All right.
And I actually showed a friend of mine, and she works at a doctor's office. She goes, wow. She said, that looks like a baby's heart when they're doing a sonogram. I'm like, well, I never visioned it that way. Maybe she had just seen some earlier or something like that. But it did. It had this kind of like this pulsating look to it. And just before the wave started going across, it pulsed real hard, and you could see it, the wave go across. Very unique, and that's a good signature. If anybody's wondering, well, what do you look for? Well, that is a very good signature because you'll just see weird movements, not just a heat wave in the atmosphere, but the actual moon doing some stuff. And I tell you what, I think I had sent you a video way back when I first started into all this, and I actually sent you a video where I just put this on a tripod and just zoomed in with the optics and then the digital zoom. And I said, look what I found. I found all kind of stuff, going across the moon. Right. Well, I could see objects flying. And you said, I didn't know that was possible. And I'm like, wonder why he said that, because I got it on the moon. And I was thinking that. But the more I've studied the moon, I've realized that I have never seen anything with my telescope bringing everything very close to me. And then the optics of the camera bring it even closer. I have never seen anything on the actual moon flying by right over the surface, which I can zoom in. I can actually zoom in so close that it actually goes blurred, and it looks like I'm looking at the ground in front of my house there. And I thought that was rather unique because what are we seeing? Is it just an atmosphere, or is the moon closer than what we think? Or it's kind of got me a little bit baffled because I had a preconceived idea of what it was or what it could be. Right. And now things are kind of flipped around like, I really don't know.
Well, I mean, you bring up a few good points. And I remember when I said that to you, and the reason I had said it was because it almost appeared like the object was so close to a crater, which is why I made the comment. But what you have demonstrated to me and what you just said is that once you begin to observe that object, whatever you choose to believe it is, you come away with a whole other kind of perspective than what you were shown in school and what NASA has been telling you your whole life. And one of the things I just heard you say is questioning how close it is. And these are key things to me because I have arrived where I am convinced nothing can hit or land on that moon. It has never changed. There's so many reasons why I think that. But the distance thing, I did that thought experiment using Google Earth not too long ago to kind of question distance. But the reason I'm bringing this up is just to kind of demonstrate to people who really don't have the ability or have never taken time with a telescope, when you put in hundreds of hours or thousands of hours to observe the moon, you begin to get a whole other sense of what's going on. Not that you get all your questions answered, because at the end of the day, you end up with maybe more questions than you started with. My point is, you stop accepting kind of all the traditional things you've been told about the moon, at least for me.
Right. Well, this is something that you can try and other people can try with a telescope. Just set your telescope up and just shoot it down the street at the farthest light that you can possibly shoot at on your street or nearby your house. Well, why isn't that street light in your face on the telescope? But yet you can turn around and look at the moon and it's in the same perspective.
Right.
Well, the moon should be like further away in the telescope, but you can look at a street light, it's the same. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. And the only way that I can get it really close is just through the optics of my camera, just zooming it in, bringing it closer to me. That was a weird observation that I had because I thought, well, maybe something's not right here. I don't know.
Well, it's funny you should mention that because what I'm going to say here is kind of in the same vein. Houston Skywatch had mentioned the other day he had his system set on the moon, and there's a video up now that I have that shows his system, 4.5-inch refractor. He had it focused on the moon, and he swung away from the moon to a pier at the beach that was, I don't know, 1,000 or a couple thousand feet away, and it was in focus. So
Yeah.
I think there's a key experiment to be done here. And,
Yeah.
you know, many people would say, well, go do it. It's simple, but it's actually not that simple because of a thing called depth of field, where
Right.
when you take a picture, you can have your subject in the picture be in focus and the foreground and the background be out of focus. So
Right.
it's not as simple as just kind of pointing at a couple things and saying, look, it's in focus. You really have to demonstrate your depth of field, your f-stop settings, and things like this. The
Right.
point is I experienced a similar thing where I had been doing moon work, but here's the real thing that's always bothered me. When I am pointed at the moon and focused in, I can swing over to a planet that's supposed to be 900 million miles away, and it's in perfect focus. And I know there's a scientific explanation for all this, but I don't really care. To me, there is valuable information kind of stashed away in a dark closet, you know, about that. But I just think it's funny to demonstrate once you begin to look at the moon for an extended period of time in the way that we do, full framing it, and of course you have to do your close-up work. You come away with a whole other view about what you're looking at.
Right. That's right. That's right. And of course, looking at things that transit the moon, I've caught geese, hawks, buzzards, and everything else. But then again, you'll see other things that fly by at super fast speeds. And when you slow it down, you go like, well, these puppies are in focus just like the hawks and the buzzards are now. Is buzzards flying at 30,000 feet, or is these objects closer to me than what I think?
Right.
And like you said, depth of field is very hard at nighttime, and you know just how that is. Unless you have something in between you and that, to where you can say, okay, this is a tree, this is the distance. It's really hard to tell how far things are away, but yeah, the moon has got a lot of questions for me, and like you say, and the more you study it, the more you look at it, you just see the way it pulsates, the way things happen. Like I said, you see the normal waves and stuff, but it's just a pulsation and just weird things about it. Just raises a lot of questions that will we ever get all the answers until somebody says the truth about what they know as the truth, then how would you get it,
Well, you make some good points, but you know, when you brought up that pulsating, I remembered when I had taken the last capture that you did at the 2015 kind of March spring equinox time.
Right.
I ran filters. Now in the 2012 footage, there's an energy pulse that occurs in the lower left limb of the moon as the wave is about to come up from the bottom. In your footage, it's almost like the whole image of the moon that we're getting is pulsating. And when I run the fine edge filter on it, people can go back and look at that footage. It's crazy. There is an absolute kind of frequency pattern, I just don't have the words to describe it, but maybe like a frequency pulse going on, almost like we're looking at an electronic device, which I don't think is a bad way to describe things. I call the moon a lot of things. I moved away from saying hologram because I don't think that's the correct way to refer to it. So I use the word facade and I use the word light. But it is in fact almost like octaves of sound or frequency or something is the sense you get when you see this kind of pulsing going on.
Mm-hmm. And two, it's like a shock wave. I've shown individuals the video, and I said, "What is your opinion on this? What do you think?" They say, "It looks like a shock wave." Like when you've seen explosive goes off on these military videos when they drop a bomb, and of course the shock wave goes out, and you can see it traveling across the desert or something, and it looks almost like a shock wave going across there. And then when you look at the crater side of the moon with all the definition, that's where you can really see it. Now, what's really odd to me is that I can really see the craters and all that area real good. But when I swing over, and no matter how much I change the exposure or the contrast or the exposure, dropping the exposure down, I almost cannot see the brighter side of the moon because it's so bright. Even dimming it down, and when I swing back around, I have to brighten it back up to see. So the moon is actually almost in two different light patterns from one side to the other.
I find that all the time. As a matter of fact, since I've been using this new big scope that I've had for a while now, what I find is if I focus out on like what's called the Kepler crater, I will find that I can get a razor sharp focus there, but in lower parts of the moon, it looks like it's slightly off. And so then when I go down and I get the bottom portion slightly in focus, it looks like the other part is slightly off. But the lighting thing you mentioned has been very vexing to me. Any sphere that is lit by an external light source should have a shadow fall off. The argument that we hear to defend that why we're seeing the things we're seeing is that the sun is so darn bright, but I don't buy it. Even when you see phases of the moon, that terminator line is very crisp at times. You know, it's not a razor sharp line, but it stops very quickly. But on the other hand, when you're looking at that full moon, there is absolutely no fall off. And when you look at the brightest portions of the moon, you can't shoot video for both sides of the moon equally. You have to, if you focus in on one side, you have to adjust your ISO or your f-stop to deal with that just kind of glaring light. And I have maintained for a long time, I think the moon is self-illuminating.
Well, I tend to agree with you on that. And I ask this question, and it's just to get people to think, and because I work outside all day, and I observe the moon when it comes up in the daytime, as it's transiting across in the daytime. How can you have the sun right here and the moon right here, and it's a full moon in the same sky? How can that be? Well, I could possibly understand if you have the moon on this side of the earth and you got the sun shining across and then you got the shadows and stuff, but they're both on the same side, full moon, and the sun's going down on the same side. Like, how can that be, you know? And
I get asked that so often, and there's other times when, you know, the moon's up in the daytime and you can see the sun, and people ask, you know, I have no answer for that. I just say that the descriptions we've been given are wrong. I don't know how else to address it. And when you look at kind of the scientific official explanations, you start to get into, you know, ecliptics and tilts and elliptical orbits and all this other craziness where you've got to really be a rocket scientist to even consider because it's so complicated. But a lot of people have questioned exactly what you brought up. And I think it's just another piece, another brick in the wall, so to speak, that the model we've been handed is not the correct version of things.
Well, I think a unique thing you just said was it's self-illuminating. I had been thinking that for a long time, just like, wow, I wonder if the moon is really, because just that description I just gave. And I never really thought about it, but somebody on a different video on YouTube had said, in the book it says, there was the light that separate, you know, the brighter light and the night for the light for the night, whatever, how it's worded.
The lesser light, I believe.
The lesser light, there you go. And so, okay, if it's a lesser light, that means it's not a reflected light.
That's right.
It's a lesser light. It's just like turning the light switch down where you just dim it down a little bit. It's the lesser light for the night. And I've seen some people making videos where they take and they shoot the laser.
Oh no, did I lose you? All right, Randy, my friend, we lost internet connection there for a minute. We were 24 minutes in, so you know where to pick up. So I'll just go ahead.
Well, as I was saying, this little gizmo right here, people can take this and you can, you know, check the temperature of things. It's just a laser pointer temperature gauge. That's all it is. What somebody had did, they took a copper plate and put it in the moonlight, and then they took a copper plate and put it in the shade. They took this laser pointed and pointed at the one that was in the moonlight. It read a certain temperature. When they turned around to the one that was in the shade, the one in the shade was cooler. So if it's a reflected light, the one in the moonlight should be hotter. They even took a magnifying glass for what you can magnify the moonlight and put it on the copper plate. And the one with the copper plate with the magnifying glass was even cooler than the first test. And the one was actually warmer, was warmer, and the one in the shade was actually cooler. So even magnifying what you can magnify moonlight was actually even cooler with the magnifying glass. So the moon has a cooling effect. How can that be? I've never seen a cooling type light. Most lights give you heat all the time, you know? but this is not a reflected light. If that test has any validity to it at all.
You know, I've heard so many people bring this up, and even in some research that I've read where they equate curing meats in the sun and, you know, when you try to deal with food in moonlight, it rots. It's kind of hard to think about that in a direct manner because clearly the sun is much stronger. But the test you just put forward doesn't matter because you're not, you know, and you're not introducing sunlight into the equation per se, unless you choose to believe that the moon is reflecting sunlight. But that would be an interesting test to actually film, and it looks like you've got the tool there. I mean, if you ever go out and do that, you know, it'd even be interesting. You can take the in the rear cell of your scope, if you take the diagonal off, you can concentrate the sunlight onto a copper plate coming through your scope. It would be like a magnifying glass, but better. And do that test. If you did that, I would run the footage because a lot of people have brought up the kind of differences in the quality of moonlight and the quality of sunlight.
Yeah. You were saying sunlight. You meant the moonlight coming through your telescope on the back?
Right.
Yeah, you said sunlight, so I just want to make sure we clarify it for people who are listening. Yeah.
No, I meant moonlight because I did that before with a prism when I was trying to determine if the moon was reflecting sunlight. I had taken a glass prism, and checked out what sunlight looked like, and I took the rear cell out of my scope and blasted concentrated kind of focused moonlight through it and looked at it on a white piece of paper. And I'm just suggesting, you know, as you corrected me, if you did that with the moon and copper and the tool that you're holding there, it would be interesting to see the result.
Yeah, well, I've got copper plating in here that I use. I got different projects I use, so yeah, I got copper plate laying around here. I'm always kind of inventing things and building stuff in my little shop here. So yeah, I got copper. So yeah, that would be a interesting little test. Now, whether it proves anything or not, we don't know. But you know what? If it helps to answer some questions or maybe raise more questions to lead us to a more of a truth or whatever, then maybe it's good, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, a ton of people have commented on the quality of moonlight and mentioned similar tests. I've never done anything with it. I've read everything that's been written about it. And, you know, I've just reached a point where so much of what we were taught in school is worthless to me now that I don't dismiss these things out of hand. I wait until there's some reason someone's demonstrated it. If we can demonstrate something in that way, I think it's an interesting thing to look at. Clearly, I kind of feel like we're at ground level again, and we got to go kind of out into the world like babes in the wood and redefine all these things that have been misdescribed to us.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I grew up in a background where certain things were taught throughout my life. At a certain point, I come to a point where I said, I'm not going. I started questioning everything that I thought I believed in. I questioned. And then when I got my telescope, it was not to prove a point, because I don't even have a YouTube where I put my videos. I'll just send them to you, and if you wanted to use them, you could. And I don't think I had told you that from the beginning.
Right.
Because I've got business and stuff that I'm doing. I don't have time to sit down and narrate and all that stuff. So I was doing this just for my own truth only. Because when I look at something and I say, whatever I think I can believe with my eyes, you try to say, well, I want to build a basis for what I believe or what I see. But sometimes what you see is not right. It's just like looking at some of these artists will do these cardboard things, and it's a 3D cardboard thing. When you look at it, it looks like a dinosaur standing there. When you turn around, it ain't nothing but this little jagged looking thing standing there, but it gives you the illusion that it's a complete dinosaur with three-dimensional roundness to it, and when it was not the whole time.
Right.
So when I started filming this was just for my own truth, to put on my phone that I could have fun, say, hey guys, look what I found, and some people tell me, say, oh man, you photoshopped that. I'm like, dude, I don't even have Photoshop. I don't even know how to do that, I can barely run this phone and this camera, But that people they're scared. I've showed some guys one time the videos of some things I've seen flying by, and the guy says, hey man, what you smoking, man, out in your backyard? I'm like, dude, come on. And he started making fun of me in front of about 8 guys. I said, the thing is that when something scares you and you don't know how to define it, you make fun of it and cut it down.
Right.
You start calling people stupid or you're smoking drugs and stuff. No, that's not it. This is just something I did. I caught this and I was just sharing it. And then he backed off. He said, yeah, it does kind of scare me because I don't know what that is, man, you know? Well, it's true. Now I think that's what happens in the world today is when people see videos, they come right out and call you names or call different people. I've seen this, people being horrible to the guys that do these videos, and they're scared of what they might believe or might see is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, in some ways, I think the system that we live in trains people to respond in this way. But I think you've absolutely hit it on the head. I mean, it's even gotten so bad where people had taken the original 2012 lunar wave footage and started a new channel, put it in After Effects, and told people, see, Crow faked it because I made this, and they hadn't done anything to the footage. They just loaded it into After Effects.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes on and on and on. But from a personal standpoint, when I began filming all the kind of weird objects that transit the moon, and you've filmed a number of them yourself, and some of them go by very quickly, some of them have been in frame for more than a minute. But what I began to realize is this does not match the descriptions of satellites. The speeds don't match. The distances, well, what we perceive the distance must be on the data we have to go on, none of it matches. And so what I began to realize was I am filming something that has been intentionally ignored because if I can film it, anyone can film it, which means this is not a secret thing. It's just that not many people are filming the moon. And if you were looking through binoculars and you saw it, and I've done this, where you see something and you think, oh, was that my eyes? You know, and you're wiggling with the binoculars. But once you get that on video, it's a whole other game because now you've got HD video, you go look at it over time, you learn more about it, and it's just plain as day. The truth is there is a heck of a lot going on above our heads that nobody has ever told you about.
That's right. You know, another example too, I asked people, I said, have you ever been standing outside and you just kind of gazing out into the sky, nice blue, clear sky, and you go, what was that? You think you saw something, but if there's nothing there, you go, yeah, I've seen that. And, you know, you see little things. Just take your camera and just start videoing out into the open space. You don't have to zoom it in a lot, just maybe just a little bit. And then go back and watch it frame. I'm shooting 60 frames per second with this thing here. So I'm getting a lot of information in a short period of time. And I will literally see a dot go on the screen. I'll stop it. I'll back it up. And one frame at a time, and something will go, boop. There's an object just as shaped like this as it could possibly be in one frame out of 60 on my whole screen.
Which means the speed of that object was 1/60th of a second. 1/60th of a second is what your camera managed to pick up. So if it was going through frame, it was traveling so quickly that only 1/60th of a second could grab it. I used to film at the same frame rate you do, but unfortunately on my cameras, it reduces the video size. And since I don't do as much daytime filming, I kind of landed on resolution is everything. But filming at 60 frames a second, you pick up a lot of crazy things. I mean, I did it for months. It's insane. But anyhow, I think we're kind of over a half an hour here, so let's kind of close up with the coming lunar wave. You know, we're coming into September. I've kind of put my neck out on the chopping block with another prediction that this is our best chance. So, I mean, I know you're going to be filming. Do you know any other people that are out here doing this, or pretty much just people on YouTube?
I haven't heard of anybody else other than Houston Skywatch, yourself, myself, and maybe a couple of people in Germany or wherever over there that you had mentioned, you know.
Right.
For us personally, I don't know anybody that's shooting, but I think there's a lot of interest because a lot of people have seen your videos, and more than likely there's a lot of people with telescopes and stuff. They're just kind of in the background going like, well, I'm hoping to catch this, and if I catch it, I'll maybe say something about it. And they're just scared because they're scared of the ridicule. But you know what? I'm having fun with it, you know, and I want to catch it. I want to see it.
Well, I think we're beyond ridicule at this point. I mean, we did make a prediction that you fulfilled last March. If we are fortunate enough to be able to capture this wave in September, I think that's a big game changer. Excuse me. But having said that, There are an absolute ton of people. When I made the prediction clip and I asked how many people could film, people were out getting new scopes, dusting off their scopes they've had in their closets, and I got quite a big response. So I'm really excited just because the number of people who are going to try. So I guess it comes down to we're all going to do the best we can.
That's it.
I think the next big thing is to try to get 2 scopes on it at once, because it's going to be very interesting to see if someone in Houston sees the exact same thing as what someone in San Diego does. And I know we've been questioning the distance of the moon, so that really plays into this. But anyhow, I want to thank you so much for making the time. I know you got some things going on in your personal life. But Randy, thank you so much, and thank you for providing the footage of the last 2 captures.
Well, Crow, I appreciate you getting on the line with me here and giving me this opportunity to just say my little piece. And it was great fun. Good seeing you, and good talking to you again, too. I know we correspond a little bit on the phone and stuff, but it was great seeing you face to face. And I'm looking forward to see what we can come up with and add a measure of truth to what we're trying to do here.
Perfect, man. Here's to the coming days in September, the 20th through the 30th. I'm going to kill the video here and we'll chat for a minute. So there's Randy from Houston, everyone.